at the end of the day, in the core, I'm a chemist, and it has always been my mission to bring chemistry in a positive light. And this is a fantastic way for us to demonstrate that chemistry is a very powerful, positive science, and you need chemistry so badly in the circular economy. And we want to enhance that as much as possible.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Biomarket Insights TV. My name is Paul MacDonald, and I'm delighted today to be joined by Monalisa Goswami, Director of Spark 904. Hi Monalisa, how are you?
Hi Paul, I'm very well, thank you.
Good. It looks lovely and sunny wherever you are. Where are you today?
It is. I'm today at Hilversum, which is a small town very close to Amsterdam. Yeah.
Very nice, very nice. Well, we're recording this on a Friday, so hopefully the weather stays nice for the weekend.
Yes, it will.
Great. Well, Monalisa, today's episode is entitled Startup Success, Spinning Off, Scaling Up and Going to Market. Our viewers are going to be interested to learn about turbocharging R&D in the circular economy, improving startup success, and the importance of collaboration. So loads of really good things to get stuck into today. So before we go into some specifics, I believe that Spark 904's mission is to help sustainability and circular economy facing businesses to fast track their R&D trajectory. Can you give me an overview of the business, please?
Yes, sure. So Spark 904 is a technical consultancy firm, and we empower companies and businesses with the power of chemistry. And we do that in two ways, by providing very flexible access to R&D infrastructure, which tends to be quite expensive. And secondly, by providing access to expertise. And our biggest suit there is, I guess, our strong connections to academic research groups and facilities at Amsterdam Science Park, but also the rest of the Netherlands.
Right, okay. And I think that leads on to my next question, which I believe you founded the business in 2017. So really interested to hear your background, the inspiration behind founding the business, and give me an idea of the journey that you've been on over the last 5 years.
Sure. My professional background is very much chemistry. So I have a PhD in organometallic chemistry at the University of Amsterdam, which I also finished in 2017. But I'm originally from India, and I arrived at the Netherlands in 2011 for a master program. And when I arrived here, honestly, I was quite flabbergasted by the wealth of infrastructure, but also just knowledge and experts that were around me all the time. And the contrast was quite big coming from India, where R&D is not, or back then was not as developed. And it was while I was doing my PhD, at some point I realized that I was working on this piece of equipment just solely by myself, which cost around €500,000. And I thought, wow, how is it possible that no one else is interested in this amazing piece of equipment, which gives you really valuable information on materials? And I figured out that it's just because there is no initiative, there was no way in which outsiders, businesses, companies could be connected to these amazing pieces of equipment. And there are hundreds of them in any given science park. And that was really the inspiration for me to see if there was something to do there, something to make this machinery work. And of course, it's all very much based on collaboration with several stakeholders and connecting the right people. So that's a bit why I started Spark 904. And to answer the second half of your question about the journey, well, I guess it's a very cliched word, but it's been interesting. It's, the challenges that you anticipate when you start are not the challenges that you actually face. And when I started, we thought it's going to be about, really answering very difficult R&D questions. And of course, we do that. But the bigger challenges are perhaps in instilling the want to share, because it's not easy. If you have a 50 square meter space to yourself and suddenly now you have to share it with two more people, it takes a change in attitude. And that, I guess, has been, yeah, a very a learning process for all parties involved.
I think that's really interesting, both parts of the answer to that question. The first one, I know when we've spoken previously, the maximizing the potential or the utilization of this very expensive equipment, which maybe is not being used to its maximum. And so doing a partnership with the university or the company or the organization who is invested in this equipment can only be a good thing for both parties, which is clearly what you've done, and hopefully you can tell us a bit more about that later on. And the second thing is, I mean, I was smiling because we're a startup business, and the things you think you're going to be not necessarily doing, but the challenges you think you're going to have are not the big challenges you have. So yeah, I can certainly understand where you're coming from there. And I think that's, I've spoken to a couple of startups and scale-ups through this process, and all of them have different bits of advice for other people that are thinking of going on this journey. I mean, I suppose jumping around a little bit, putting you on the spot a little bit, I suppose, what would be the one piece of advice that you would give somebody who's just founded their business in a sort of similar space to yourself?
Yes, I think we are doing this now 5 years down the line, when we're actually sitting down together as a team and defining our vision and mission. Somehow we think mission statements and vision, these are for large corporates, and this is a part of corporate social responsibility. But I think it is very important to know that, to have it clear, to maybe even have it printed out in your office, like, why are we doing this? You get so easy to get caught up in details of milestones and turnovers and year-on-year profits, etc. But it is so important to crystallize your vision, and it's not an easy task. So take the time for it and communicate it, not only to your team members, but also to the world outside. This is why we're doing it, and make it authentic, of course, right? And that is very valuable. And I'm not sure a lot of startups and a lot of young founders do it right away.
Great piece of advice. I could talk to you on that subject for the entire episode, but we better not. But I'm so interested. I love it, love it. Okay, so one of the sessions at this year's World Biomarkets is about startup success, spinning off, scaling up, and going to market. So very much what you've been through and what you're currently in. So what kind of support do you think startups in this sector lack? Where are they getting stuck?
Yeah, so the beginnings are the hardest, right? And there is, at least in the Netherlands and the rest of Western Europe as well, enormous support when it comes to incubator programs, accelerators, business support. But startups who are actually developing new technology, new processes, are for a long time stuck in this TRO 2 and 3, because they have enormous needs when it comes to R&D infrastructure. There isn't a single investor, a single VC that is going to give you money to just start up a lab or buy a piece of equipment when you don't even have your MVP. And that is a very delicate point. It's high risk. And what we try to do is basically de-risk that by providing very flexible access to infrastructure, by removing away these hurdles of big investments which are needed, by plugging them into existing infrastructure. And it's not only true for startups, even in a large company. If you have an R&D innovation project, which there might be a business case, but if you do not have the proof of technology, even to get budgets approved for those kind of projects in a large company can be challenging. And that's also the reason why we also end up working with a lot of large multinationals, where we basically execute a large parts of these high-risk projects, which they do not want to do or cannot do in-house.
Yeah, that was really interesting, because when I look on your website, I notice some sort of big names, which don't take this the wrong way, but surprised me, because you're a relatively young business and yet you're working with some of these really established companies. So how have you managed to do that? What has your approach been? Why does it work? How have you been successful in those partnerships?
Yeah, so most of the partnerships we have with the larger multinationals and companies are to do with very niche analytical, very niche spectroscopic equipment, which maybe they are not really out there in the market yet, or even if you can buy it, you don't always have the expertise in-house to make sense of the results you're getting out. And that's where our collaborations and partnerships with the academic research groups come in really handy, because these companies are interested in very high-tech equipment, piece of information, but not on a day-to-day basis. They need this 3, 4, 5 times a year. So these are very high-value niche projects that we do with these companies.
And just talk me through the process of a business finding you or you
Yeah.
finding them. What's the common challenge that they come to you with, and how does
Mhm.
it move through the pipeline?
Yeah. Um, Of course, it has changed, thankfully. When I started in 2017, it was me going out to the building, talking to as many people as possible. And these days, it's more companies finding us, but that's just credibility, and in time, you become a bit more known and easier to find. But most of the companies, and it doesn't matter big or small, come with questions like, we need to know this about our material, but we don't know how. So it's always a very involved process, where the onboarding process with the client, even before we get to the point where we're actually doing a project with them, involves a lot of deep diving into their processes, into their problems, a lot of in-house desk research from our side as well. And we are very particular in this because, no matter what role you have in the company, we always hire people with a technical background. So we are very good conversation partners. We speak the same language, and we take their problems, we make them our problems, basically. So it always starts with 2, 3 meetings, even on-site visits, where we understand the process they're working on, their problems. We make a proposal, and they're always milestone based. So, you know exactly what you're signing for, their go, no go moments. And we become basically a part of their R&D team. And I think that's where we see very nice professional relationships developing as well.
And um, is that just with other producers of biomaterials, or are you starting to talk to the brands as well and working with their in-house team? What's the customer profile?
We are not working at this moment a lot with brands, but it is definitely happening more and more as people are rising up to become problem owners themselves. But we are most of the time working with manufacturers, technology developers. Yes.
Yeah, we're seeing the same thing with World Biomarkets. Over the
Yeah.
last few years, the my background was a lot in packaging, and so you see a
Yes.
lot of the FMCG brands,
Yeah.
obsessed with packaging, with its lightweighting, recycled
Yeah.
material,
Yeah.
recyclability, etc. And now I think the sort of the bioeconomy, or the sort of bio-based solutions, are just making it onto the front page of these FMCG brands. They're starting to think
Yes.
about, what is the product made out of that goes in our
Yes.
body or on our skin, or
Yeah.
we sit
Yeah.
on, for example. So
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, those are the very interesting ones, because those are the companies who have never thought of R&D, have never thought of chemistry, and suddenly are starting to. And those are the most rewarding projects, I would say. Yeah.
yeah, okay, great. And maybe you mentioned some of the people you work with. Can you give us maybe 1 or 2 sort of success stories? So what startups, I'm really interested in the startups rather than the established,
Yeah.
but what startups you've worked with and have benefited from working with Spark 904?
Yes, my favorite startup these days is a company called Cafe Inc. They have recently closed a 4 million euros investment round to start their pilot plant. And 3 years ago, we started working with this company when they had just an idea on paper. Students from the university in Utrecht and Wageningen who wanted to assess the feasibility of extracting valuable components out of spent coffee grounds. So this idea is catching on a lot. There are several other startups, a few more around as well. And what they were interested in is extracting the components which give color, right? So coffee stains are annoying, but if you are able to actually, intentionally apply those dyes, these are natural products, of course. And what I did not know is that, when you make a cup of coffee, I mean, it's a no-brainer, but you use only 2 or 3% of the material that's actually going into the coffee filter, right? And the rest is just chucked to the bins. And they have been extracting the oils out to replace other fossil-based or bio-based or palm oils in cosmetics or food ingredients. And we help them develop the color extraction process. And we were doing this, in small vessels and vials in the lab. And right now they're constructing the pilot plant. So that's acceleration. And we really feel as successful as they are in what they're doing, because we played such an important role for that company. So that's one example. And one other example is of a rather new project where, pyrolysis, for example, has been around for a while now as well. So you make pyrolysis oil, but even when you do pyrolysis, there's still a waste left. There's always waste, no matter what you're doing. This is like second level recycling. And this startup is interested to know what's in this dust mucky thing that's left after the pyrolysis process and what can do with it. So this is like a detailed composition analysis using several analytical techniques to find out, okay, what's in there and what is the best way to make use of that. And that's a very, in terms of R&D, almost like fundamental research, and yet done for a startup. So yeah, those are some examples.
It's so exciting. It's so exciting, isn't it? The science and the capability behind looking at what's left. If you're really going to close the loop and create a circular economy,
exactly.
it's about, there is no wastage. You're absolutely reducing the amount of wastage, which there's far too much of at the moment. And then being able to understand that wastage and extract value from it, is incredibly exciting for the future of society, the economy, the planet.
Yes, yes. And being at the end of the day, in the core, I'm a chemist, and it has always been my mission to bring chemistry in a positive light. And this is a fantastic way for us to demonstrate that chemistry is a very powerful, positive science. And you need chemistry so badly in the circular economy. And we want to enhance that as much as possible.
And I think that's a big challenge facing people like yourself and businesses like yourself to communicate that. Because I
Yes.
would say that in the past, perhaps that hasn't been a strength of, you're laughing a lot, maybe that hasn't been a strength. And so communicating that capability in a way that the people you're communicating it to can understand, who many times won't be have a chemistry background, has got to improve and is really, really important, because the future is so bright.
Absolutely. I think 50% of the customers, clients we talk to have no technical background, but they have a problem they want to solve. And, that drive is very important. And I think in terms of timing, we've seen immense change in the last 4 or 5 years. Like the ground is fertile for circular economy, and everyone has accepted that this has to change and are asking for all kinds of help to make it happen. And of course, chemistry alone will not happen, right? But this is one major factor.
Yeah, it's really very interesting that 50% of the people you talk to don't have a technical background. And you'd almost sort of want that, really. It's, as you say, it's about identifying the challenge, and then finding the collaborative partners to help overcome. And there's going to be a number of ways of achieving that challenge, as always. And it's sort of ascertaining the best path to take.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Marvelous. Well, listen, we're sort of coming towards the end of this very lovely episode, and I quite often ask my guests one final question, and that's sort of what environmentally friendly person, product, project has put a smile on your face recently? What makes you smile? What can we be positive about?
What makes me smile? A good conversation makes me smile, really. And one that comes to mind is from a few weeks ago, and this is a project which is currently in discussion. We aren't even doing it yet, but it was a roofing company. So this company basically lays the bitumen roof, the waterproof black thick. They torch bitumen, melt it, it's on your roof. 20, 25 years, you're okay. And this company found me because I was speaking at an event, and they contacted me and said, well, so when we remove these roofs, we're just burning this bitumen for energy, and that's it. And we're wondering, is there something else we can do with it? And by the way, we're just a construction company. And that is, it is, speaking of purpose, like it really underlines why we exist as a company. And that did really bring a smile on my face, because it is at the core of it a very chemical question. This is molecular chemistry we're talking about. And our conversation partner is someone, as a company, is aware, is taking responsibility, and wants to partner with universities and science parks where they have never really, have much to do with the rest of their lives. And I love that. And that really, really does put a smile on my face, and the rest of the team as well.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah,
Yeah.
love that, because obviously, we know that the cosmetic companies and the food companies are sort of, ahead, if you like, or the clothing companies sort of leading the
Yeah.
charge. So to hear, and of course, construction has a huge
Huge.
environmental footprint,
Yeah.
and so to hear that is fantastic. We need more of that, obviously, and we need more people to contact you to help them, obviously.
Yes, please.
Okay, well, listen, thanks ever so much, Monalisa. Before we end this episode, I'd just like to invite any collaborative bio pioneers to feel free to give me an email at paul@biomarketinsights.com, and let's see what we can do together. So Monalisa, that pretty much wraps up our conversation today. I would just like to thank you on behalf of myself and our viewers from around the world. Thanks for your insights, your time, and I wish you and the team all the very best of luck for the rest of the year and beyond.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you for having me. And the time flew by, so it was a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. You have a lovely weekend.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.